Oh, surely no one's better than Ray.
The Colonel certainly is.
That's very sweet of you, my dear.
That was fun.
True.
Monsieur Poirot should not dance. Too fat. Bad for the heart.
I'd kind of like to know who did it, Monsieur Poirot.
Oh, does it matter?
I think it does. Will you tell us?
What makes you so sure it wasn't one of us?
Well, I want you to consider two facts. First of all, Mrs. Boynton was taking digitalis. And secondly,
Dr. King here was missing a syringe. Now, quite clearly, no member of the family need have taken the risk of injecting it. All they had to do was to increase the level of the digitalis to a fatal dose.
at worst, this could be attributed to a mistake by the chemist who mixed it.
If a syringe was used, it was for a very good reason. It was that the murderer was not sufficiently intimate with Mrs. Boynton just to enter the tent and to tamper with the medicine. Of all the suspects so far, the most obvious one is Mr. Cole. You, sir, were guilty of chicanery.
I admit that she forced me to burn the real will. Thank God that little injustice was prolonged only for a few weeks.
We forgive you, Jefferson.
But he tried to cheat us.
For goodness, we were plotting to murder her.
Go on, man.
Mrs. Boynton took a particular pleasure in preventing her family from associating with other people. And yet, on the fatal afternoon, she actually insisted that they left and that they enjoyed themselves elsewhere.
Why?
Well, you see, Mrs. Boynton had to get rid of the family because, to use a vulgarity, she had other fish for frying. What was it you said to her in Jerusalem, Dr. King?
I called her pathetic and ludicrous.
There you have it. There was Mrs. Boynton, confronted by herself, owing to the words of an intelligent young woman. She was full of baffled fury. And then suddenly, while she was in this mood, there was a face from the past, somebody she recognized. Another victim to fall into her grasp. Consider her words to Dr. King.
I never forget anything. Not an action, not a name, not a face.
Those words were spoken not to Dr. King, but to someone else who was standing behind her. Let us reconstruct what occurred on that fateful afternoon. The family went off on its jaunt. Lady Westholme tells us that one of the Arab servants picked a quarrel with Mrs. Boynton.
You mean the one of those Arab fellows stuck over the hypodermic?
Both Miss Quinton and Lady Westholme say they saw the Arab boy emerge from the tent occupied by Ginny. But Dr. King's tent was next door. It might quite easily have been that tent to which they were referring. Lady Westholme said,
In addition, he was wearing a pair of torn and patched breeches, and his puttees were wound most untidily.
but Lady Westholme was sitting at her tent 200 yards away. She said she didn't see the face. How could she possibly have seen the detail of clothing at such a distance? There was no Arab who had an argument with Mrs. Boynton. The person who killed Mrs. Boynton was the same as the one that stood behind Dr. King in Jerusalem.
Dr. King?
And it was the same one who was standing behind me when I was waiting for the only witness of the murder to meet me. Oh, it was no coincidence. Lady Westholme's window gave onto the very alley where the boy had asked me to meet him the night before. She overheard, but she had no way of finding him before our actual meeting. After that, she took to the streets like a hunter and did not rest until she had killed her quarry.
But just a minute. Miss Quinton said that Mrs. Boynton was still alive when she and Lady Westholme started out on their walk. And she was certainly dead by the time they got back.
Miss Quinton agreed with Lady Westholme.
She grunted like a pig.
Most offensive.
But Miss Quinton is easily suggestible.